Hello, my name is Randy Williams, proud member and also founder and CEO of Keiretsu Forum. We're taping this show. This is our 14th month. We do this monthly. These great shows are content rich, hopefully talking about the ecosystem of startup investing and a myriad of other subjects. We have grown to 50 locations globally. In fact, I'll be in my European chapters on Monday. Today, we have an interesting subject near and dear to my heart is how to navigate your board. Great board management is important, both the CEO, but also from the board member. So we're going to have a quiz. Get your pens out. Wonderful guest today, Jim Lussier. I've been a member for 2 years at Keiretsu Forum. Talk about your background first, Jim, and let's dive into it.
Great, sure. So my background's a combination of venture capital investing. I've been a professional investor for the last 15 years, from 2000 to 2011 as general partner at Norwest Venture Partners, which is a $3.7 billion fund, 12 partners, and 80 portfolio companies. And from there, I went on to be managing director and head of Dell Ventures from 2011 to 2016. We had a $300 million fund, 20 direct investments, 12 venture funds, and before that, a background in entrepreneurship, general management, and management consulting at Accenture, where I managed the high-tech strategy practice for North America, and then also at Beyond.com, where I was a vice president general manager of an e-commerce company selling software over the internet that went public.
Okay, so you're going to hopefully put me on the spot, and hopefully you're going to tell me no answers necessarily true or false, but we're going to start with some quiz here about boards, and because how many boards have you sat on?
Well, that's good. A good question, Randy. So I've actually been involved in 50 companies that I've touched in one way or another, either as a board member, a board observer, an investment committee member, or an oversight role over a portfolio. 21 of those as a board member and observer, and most of those have been in the range from 80 million down to zero. So $0 to $80 million startups, but up to $2 billion in revenue. And in that time, I've had 7 IPOs, 23 sales and exits, 12 still operating, and 8 shut down. Now that happens, yes, but it's a lot of companies and a lot of experience. And co-investing with the likes of Sequoia, Kleiner Perkins, Benchmark, Excel, Greylock, Redpoint, Lightspeed, and some great companies. So, Norwest is known for PeopleSoft and Tivoli and Documentum, and more recently, companies like Rackspace, FireEye, Lending Club, CollabNet, Sabre, and at Dell, we had Nutanix, which just went public, Cylance, which is a very hot security company, Arkin, which sold to VMware, and a variety of others. And Randy, I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about boards, which is a topic that's near and dear to my heart.
Wonderful. So the first question, give me a tough question.
All right, okay. So this is the quiz. We're about to start the quiz. So
take out your pens.
Take out your pencils, get ready. and you're going to give me what kind of an answer, Randy? When I ask you this question, it's true or false? And are you going to give me the real answer? Are you going to give me the conventional wisdom? What kind of answer are you going to give me here?
Well, it sounds like a trick question right away. I'm going to give you how I'm feeling at the moment and my experience, because I've been on boards too.
All right.
But, again, there's not, okay, well, let's go.
Right answer. All right, let's go. Let's get going. All right, so question 1. As CEO, you work for the board, and your job is to meet or exceed the expectations of the board. True or false?
True.
Okay, Randy, why do you say that?
Well, I know there's a question within a question, but I'm going to let you answer the question now.
Yeah.
But if you truly want my answer, the CEO's responsibility, as I see it, is obviously to execute on the plan, and he has to be very transparent, which we're going to talk about hopefully.
Yes, we will.
Yes, but she also. I can feel right now you're kind of tricked me, so I'm going to let you talk first. And then,
well, it's technically true,
yes.
So you're on firm ground right there, right? Technically, the CEO serves at the pleasure of the board. And so therefore, yeah, it's your job to meet or exceed their expectations. But my view is that's missing the whole point. The whole point is the job of the CEO is to lead the board. It's not to take direction, listen to the board, try to figure out what they want, because if you're trying to figure out what the board wants all the time, you're going to be in trouble, because there's 7 board members and 20 opinions. So it's your job as the CEO to come up with a compelling vision and come up with a direction for the company and lead the company and the board to a successful outcome. What do you think about that?
I love it. Now, let me ask you this. So
Okay, sure.
You as a board member,
Right.
you want the CEO to lead leaders, and he or she needs to make sure you're prepared for the board meeting.
That's true.
Do you always see that CEO actually call you and talk to you for 45 minutes to an hour and say, Jim, are you prepared? Let's just say that you are on the audit side, audit committee.
Yeah, sure.
Are you going to be prepared? Are they going to give you a homework assignment that you're actually going to execute?
Yeah.
Or are you going to be passive? What's the best board?
Yeah, the best practice, the most successful CEOs are going to call each and every board member 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the board meeting and spend, 30 to 45 minutes going over, here's the key issues that I'd like to cover at the board, here's the decisions we need to make, and here's where I could use your help and your advice. What thoughts do you have about that? That's the best practice. And I guess the number one thing, my advice would be in this regard, never bring up a decision at the board that hasn't been socialized beforehand. Never surprise your board. Never go into a board meeting with a question you don't know the answer to.
Right. I learned a long time ago when I was on a board, if the CEO truly wants to get something done, we use both she and he, they really need to contact you first and discuss it with you. And the board is really there to ratify, not to really embellish too much.
Exactly.
Okay, next question.
The next question, true or false? Get ready. Your board is there to help you be successful as the CEO.
Ooh, right. I hate to say it's true and false, but I'm going to say true.
True, okay. Yes, your board is there in some ways to help you be successful. And at the same time, if you really take a step back and think about it, what is your board really responsible for? What are they really there to do? They're there to assure the success of the company and are managing all of the shareholders and their stakes and their interests, as well as the employees and the customers. And so that's what their major role is. And to the extent that you help with them with that role, with that project, they're going to do everything they can to support you and get you the training you need, the advice you need, and so on. But in the event that you're not really fitting into that plan going forward, you may be finding yourself in a different role. So to that extent, it's true, but false,
Good.
Depending.
I got it right then. So, Jim, you have tremendous stories. So as we weave through these questions and answers,
sure.
I want you to tell some stories. Probably can't talk about the company.
Right.
You can't mention a company.
Right.
But stories are very powerful. Okay, next question.
Okay. So the key to success with your board is to have strong alignment with them on objectives and measures. True?
True.
True or false? Yeah, certainly that's part of it. But really the key to, when you think about a board and what they're looking for in a CEO, yeah, they're looking for certain objectives, but there's so many intangibles that that's simply the tip of the iceberg. The board is looking for a CEO who can articulate that vision. Is that something that you can put into objective? Maybe yes, maybe not. They're looking for someone who can lead the team. They're looking for someone who can raise money. Yeah, you can put that into an objective, certainly hit the sales numbers and everything else, but it's also business development, partnerships, and so on. And actually, some of the most successful CEOs I see are always automatically reaching out to potential partners, to potential acquirers, even when the company isn't even anywhere near an exit. So there's so many things that the CEO does, the successful ones do, that are where the objectives is only the first step.
Let me ask you a question within that question.
Sure.
I see a lot of CEOs appoint board members that there's some alignment. It can be positive, but it also can be negative. It can be, there's obviously major capital in the firm.
Right.
And that capital, possibly the GP of a firm that's providing that capital may be too busy, may not be qualified, but has to sit on the board. So how do you navigate and get that board member working or doing something that is important to the CEO instead of just being a placeholder?
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to the topic at the beginning here around leadership and leading the board and setting the tone for the company. Everyone in the company looks to the CEO, and at the same time, setting the tone with the board. And the best CEOs that I've seen set a tone of collaboration with their board, that the board is there to work, right? The board is there to take homework assignments and do action items. And if you can create that culture where, and most board members actually do want to help the company and they want to know, what can I do to help?
Right.
So if you create that environment, then that board member who's kind of there and unsure why they're there, or maybe not sure why they want to be there, whereas everyone else has got their action items are getting done, and you turn to Charlie and you say, well, how did you do on those introductions? You create this environment where everybody is participating.
Right.
Yeah.
And also if there's action steps of the board. I mean, I was on a board last week, and the CEO asked me, I'm intrigued about this acquisition. Can you please put us together, the two CEOs? I haven't done it yet. It's been 5 days. Now, that's a bad board member. Now, when I leave the show, that's the first call I'm going to make. And so, because my joy is really connecting great people and seeing, obviously, the company succeed. Next question.
All right. Okay. It's important. Get your pens out. What do you think? It's important to build trust with your board. And to build trust, it's important to be open and transparent. True or false? Wow.
There's a good one. Viewers. So this is really airing dirty laundry. This is a question about, do you let your board know everything? And if you do you show weakness or strength? And so I'm going to answer, true. But the reason I'm not answering true is because they can't know everything.
That's right. I mean, that's a
very, very interesting subject.
Let me turn it around the other way. I think it's true. You do have to show openness and transparency. That part of it's absolutely true. And that helps build trust.
And what you're articulating, yes, but you may not want to talk about everything.
Exactly. One of my, someone asked me, what are some things as a board member that, as a CEO, you should never do?
Right.
And one of them is to treat your board as a confessional. At times, it's lonely at the top. Sometimes you want to let your hair down. But if you treat your board members as, gosh, these folks are here to help me. I've got a lot of problems. I'm not sure I'm really cut out for this job. How do you think that's going to go over?
Not well.
Not well. So you want to be transparent. You want to be open, but draw the line. Be smart.
That's right. Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we all want to, articulate, what our needs or wants are. But there's also other opportunities to do so. It's not really on a board. You can take somebody aside, private dinner, and say, "Gee, can you help me on this?" And hopefully you have the trust for them to actually help you instead of going back and telling everyone. So, you have any more?
I do, and this is let me give you a spin on that one about openness and transparency. So to show that openness and transparency, which we both agreed is very, very important, and to help build trust, it's really a good policy to give your board access to anyone on your team at any time. Wouldn't that show a lot of transparency, Randy?
Yes, it would, and I agree with that. However, fortunately, on my team, for instance, they're all already working 6, sometimes 7 days a week.
Right.
So if you give access to your board, to
just
some of your
anybody anytime.
Key team members, that would be tough. You'd almost want to do that together.
You'd almost want to do it together, yeah. And sometimes you have no choice. Let's just say one of the investors, in return for the capital they put in, wants to drop a CFO into the company. Do you think that CFO is going to be talking to that board member outside of board meetings and afterwards? Of course they will. But at the same time, it is good to have some amount of dialogue and interaction between the board and the members of the management team. A good CEO wants to showcase their management team in front of the board and show the kind of capability they've got and help to develop the careers. But at the same time, depending on how seasoned your management team is, a board member reaching directly down into the company and asking a question, if the person's a little bit less seasoned or inexperienced, they may provide an answer that creates more problems, even with the best of intentions, creates more problems for the company, for the board, and everyone else than just not doing that. So do you actually prevent access? No, I don't think you can do that. But what I've seen the really savvy CEOs do is say, look, board, I'm fine with you talking with my team. All I want to do is just make sure that I know about it in advance, a little bit more about the reason why. Let's just respect that, kind of the rules of engagement. And similarly with the team. If the board member reaches out and contacts you, just let me know about it. That's all. And those conversations are going to unfold, and frankly, there's not all that much you can do about it. But the more that you can be aware of it and help facilitate it in a way that's constructive for you, for the board member, and for the management team member, I think that's the best way to go.
So obviously, in your background, you usually moved many companies toward profitability and exit, and they weren't always startups. They obviously were large companies.
Yeah.
Did the CEOs always know what they were doing at the board level? Did they need to get trained, and if so, where did they go for that? For safe harbor, where they could actually take a class, or possibly be with other CEOs to have commonality, so they could execute better with their board members.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources out there, and some of it's the informal network that all of us have, and maybe you know someone who's been a CEO that you can turn to and trust outside of the board meeting setting. There's CEO coaches, and I've got a number of CEOs that I'm coaching right now in terms of how to deal with their board, how to deal with issues around financing, and so on and so forth. And sometimes the board will even help you with a CEO coach and hire one, on your behalf if they want to see you develop along that line. And then there are formal networks of CEOs, and there's any number of them, CEO Quest, Vistage. There's so many different groups where CEOs can get together and in a facilitated manner talk about the issues that they have, and that's good. And I guess the final one is, when you're in a company, this is a multi-year relationship, and you do develop close personal relationships with the board. And I'd say some of my most satisfying relationships have been with the CEOs in the companies that I've been with. And we forget the ones that are frustrating, but you can develop and get some coaching from your board members as well.
So we have a family of funds at Keiretsu Forum called Keiretsu Capital. We have 175 LPs. We have right now a small portfolio growing to 100. We have 71 investments we've made. We really want to encourage our CEOs to ask for resources. So we have a LinkedIn network around the world. Ask for resources and you shall receive. So do you see your CEOs that you've interfaced in the past and the present, are they asking for resources, or do they sometimes feel, well, that's coming from a position of weakness and a strength? Are they asking, or what's the best mechanism to ask for those resources?
Well, I do think that the CEO, there are some CEOs really are hesitant to admit that there's a weakness or something they want to address. And I think that holds them back. And the more that people can say, look, and everybody knows this, I'm not perfect, I can use help, all the help I can get. So I see the best CEOs really reaching out and looking for coaching and counseling from wherever they can get it, whether it's Keiretsu Forum and the Senior Executive Network there, or their own board, or their personal network.
Well, speaking of my weaknesses, am I failing on the quiz so far? Am I batting 500?
I don't know.
Okay, let's do some more. How many more questions do we have?
We got a couple more. We got a few more here. So let's see. Let's talk about board preparation, and we could even talk about the agenda for the board meeting and what makes sense, how to run a board meeting. I mean, there's a lot of topics we can get into, but let's just take it from the top. Everyone knows that a startup is extremely dynamic. Right? It's changing all the time. There's different issues. You're pivoting here. We've got a new opportunity there. And the time that you have with your board is precious, isn't it, Randy?
That's right.
It's absolutely precious, and you want to make the most of it. So the true false is, get your pencils. It's important to have a highly tailored board packet that hits the critical issues at any point in time. And this requires a ton of customization and preparation to do it right. True or false?
True? I was going to say true, but the customization. So I think it's important that all board members receive a generic, wonderful package that they can discuss all the time, but there's an embellishment, so okay, we're going to discuss the following, but standardization is important. So I'm going to say true on that.
All right. You nailed it. You nailed it, Randy.
Wow.
That's one for sure that you got right. And there's others, of course, but absolutely right. Think about this. Most startups have a board meeting every month or every 6 weeks or so. But if you've got a monthly cycle, and it takes you and the team 2 or 3 or 4 days, or God forbid, even a week to prepare for that board meeting, guess what? 25% of the company's bandwidth of your senior executive team has gone into preparing for board meetings. Right. And so you might have the most beautiful board package, but think about the loss of productivity. So how do you guard against that? It's exactly what you said. Standardize the packet. take, to the extent you can, reports that you use for your operations anyway. Your pipeline reports, your financials. Ask the board what they want. There may be some key performance indicators or KPIs that they want to see every time. Ask them about that, produce that on a regular basis. But 90% of the board pack almost can come together automatically. So it's not highly customized. Is there customization? Maybe 2 or 3 slides that address the key issues that you'd like to cover. A lot of board meetings I see start with the CEO and the board alone for 15 minutes or so with kind of a State of the Union, or kind of, here's what we're going to try to do today. Here's how I want to orchestrate this meeting. Here's kind of what's working, what's not working, what I want to work on with you today. We've all seen the packet. I know you've all read it. I'm going to call on you for your homework as we go through this. And but having that standardized pack with a couple custom slides at the beginning or during the meeting at the key points, I think is really key.
And the CEO has to lead leaders, and everybody's busy, especially these board members. They have other activities. You probably sat on 3 or 4 boards at a time, given every year.
Yeah, and sometimes 6.
And they have to be prepared. But, I was on a bank board. We had a wonderful exit here in Northern California years ago. But I remember we start promptly at 5:30. Right. Our leader, our chairman, did a great job in standardization. When we would focus for 2 hours, then we move into dinner, then wine would come out. But we would never do anything in regards to the technical aspects of the board meeting with food or wine. It was focused, and then the social aspects, and then we would discuss deeper and deeper issues. But of course, that wasn't the time to ratify. But he kept us on track. But what I liked about this chairman, he also empowered us to really engage. Yeah. Now, do you see a lot of situations where the CEO is I would say too much in control?
Sure. Yeah. You want it to be collaborative, right? And so I have seen CEOs that, the team comes in, the CEO's there, the board's there, the CEO does all the talking. What message does that send to the board, right? That may send the message that either I got to be in control, or maybe I don't trust my team. Well, then why are they there? So orchestrate the board meeting before. That's another best practice. Before you go into the board, sit down with your team the day before. Go through the deck. Go through the role that each person's going to play. Anybody that's in the board meeting generally should have a speaking part. And try to anticipate the kind of questions and make sure, to the extent you can, you're all on the same page, because that comes through. If people are on different pages, the board can sense that. So absolutely, you can be too in control either with your team or with the board. I saw an article, I can't see where, but the thought stuck with me that, if you really want to work collaboratively with your board, what's better? To stand up in front with your slides, with the projector behind you, and you're at the head of the table talking, versus just shirt sleeves, everybody's around the table. Different environment. Which is more collaborative? And which one sets the CEO up to be judged and evaluated versus to be a teammate that you're working together with?
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'd love to hear a story of a favorite company that led to a successful exit because of the leadership of the board and the CEO. Can we? And I know I'm putting on the spot because you have tons of companies, and you have obviously some great exits. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds to think about that.
Well, there's a lot of different companies, and the board has played a critical role at a lot of different times. Sometimes it comes down to the exit, right? The exit, and I can think of one company in particular where there was a CEO, big company background, relatively experienced, first startup though. And having come out of a big company and then going into a startup, had very little experience in terms of how to market the company, how to sell the company. There was a banker involved, but the banker can only take it so far, right? And so there are situations where the CEO's pitch the company, the banker's answering the questions, the buyer on the other side, usually business unit manager, corporate development's involved, and so on and so forth. But you can hit an impasse. And sometimes the buyer is going to reach out, and they're going to want to have a contact, and they're going to want to know from somebody, I've got a concern here. We haven't been able to get the answer from the banker, haven't been able to get the answer from the CEO. Can you help point me in the right direction? And I've seen board members be really effective at supporting the CEO, not undercutting the banker, but at the same time, in working with the CEO and the banker, helping the buyer get comfortable with whatever that issue is. It's kind of the behind-the-scenes consigliere kind of a role,
Yeah,
and I've seen that happen.
You're not going to tell me that company, and probably not appropriate asking.
Yeah.
We have one last question, because we only have 2 minutes left of this great 30-minute program.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, here's an interesting one, and it relates to investors. So, true or false? When it comes to the next round of financing, okay, your inside investors, the folks that were there before, are your best ally and have a vital role to play.
False.
False, Randy.
He's checked me the whole time. I'm going to have you give the answer, and I'm going to give my answer after you.
All right. So think about it. You've heard the old story about breakfast, right? Where the chicken is involved, but the pig is committed.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
The inside investor is more like the pig than the chicken, right? Because they're committed.
Right.
And they're the ones that have, there's probably never more alignment between a CEO and an investor than once you're already in the company. Right. That's my view. So I would say it's true.
Okay.
Unless things are going so badly that the investor basically has said, look, I want to support this company, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to make it. I have to protect my limited partner's capital, and I've got to be careful about. But even then, they still have an incentive to get the company to a safe landing, to get it sold. So right. I believe they are your best friend. But you said false, Randy.
Well,
why?
My lens is about bandwidth. I've been fortunate at Keiretsu Forum to make 53 investments.
Yeah.
And my most recent investment is the one I support the most because it's clear, it's concise, and I want to provide resources. I might get a little tired of that one that has an exit 4 or 5 years ago. So I think current capital is really, really helpful if the CEO reaches out and gets the current capital to help out. Not the past capital can't help, but past capital sometimes gets tired and it's not helping the company.
There is that aspect, and a lot of CEOs say, well, how open should I be with my investors? Because they're the ones that they're going to be asked to re-up, and that sends a big signal to the new investor. Are they in, are they out? But I view it's a partnership, and you know, work together.
Great.
Work together with your insider.
This has been a wonderful program, but the spirit of swarm intelligence and mindshare, you know, we all want to get better and smarter and more efficient, both on boards and also as investors, but we all have to be involved. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you enjoyed this program, please look on YouTube on past programs. Jim, it's great to have you a guest. Thank you so much for coming today.
It's been my pleasure, Randy. Really enjoyed it.
Okay.